Good evening. Welcome back to Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. This evening, we're exploring the Roswell UFO crash. We're talking with Jesse Marcel Jr., who's got a new book out called The Roswell Legacy, The Untold Story of the First Military Officer at the 1947 Crash Site. If you'd like to order your own signed copy, you can go to theroswelllegacy.com or jessemarcelsenior.com. You'll be able to get information there. Mr. Marcel, we have another call on hold. If you don't mind, we'll take another caller here. And we have Steve from Prior Lake. Steve, you have a question?
Good evening. Good to talk to you. Is the reason the government won't tell us about UFOs is because of the Orson Welles broadcast of War of the Worlds in 1939? And one other question, Jesse. I was wondering if your father was told to not talk about the Roswell crash?
Well, to answer the second question first, yes, he was told not to talk about that. And he didn't for many, many years, but finally after about 30 years, he thought, well, maybe I could start, saying something about that. And like I said, Stanton Friedman was the first one who really got any kind of extensive interview from him about that. As far as the panic of the 1938, whatever it was, Orson Welles broadcast War of the Worlds, that was a world that was pretty jittery. We were about ready to enter into World War at that time. And the way the program was put out, it sounded real enough that it sounded like it was actually happening, like this was an invasion of some kind. But I think people now can accept the fact that we're being visited by extraterrestrial craft. They don't seem to be doing any harm for us. They're not malevolent. I think they're just scientifically curious. And I think most people could accept that fact without any undue alarm. As a matter of fact, NASA has done an investigation about what will happen, not if, but when they announce that Roswell and other extraterrestrial craft have been in the skies, and most people would accept it. I guess the ones that wouldn't, a few of the far right-wing religious people would not want to accept that, but I think most people would accept without any panic.
Do you think that aliens are among us? Like there was a show in the 60s with Roy Thinnis, The Invaders. Do you think that there's any chance that aliens have infiltrated our society?
Yeah, well, I think anything is possible. I think, but I'm pretty skeptical about that. I think more than likely these are just scientific probes, just like we're sending to other planets in our own solar system here for investigation purposes. I think they're curious about this primitive civilization we have, see if we're going to survive our warlike tendencies here. But I think they're just curious, they're scientifically curious, and have not a whole lot of contact, physical contact with us. Some people talk about the abduction scenarios. I'm skeptical about that, but maybe if they're scientifically curious, they may want to do some physical examination on selected people. Who knows? But I guess the possibility is there, but I'm kind of doubtful about it.
Do you think that more evidence is coming out from Russia and other countries about UFOs? Are we getting pretty close to a worldwide announcement that we are being visited? Do you think that day is getting closer?
Yeah, I would hope so, because, as time goes on, with more and more events in the skies that cannot be explained except by extraterrestrial craft, it's not just a United States problem, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It'll have to come from, maybe there's the United Nations that will make the final announcement, but it seems like there's been a slowly drip of information being released, that when the announcement is made, there won't be that much of a shock about this. Well, even the Pope made a statement to the fact that you can be religious and still believe in extraterrestrial beings.
Right, which really comes out a lot. Now, do you think, though, that Jesse, with the whole hiding it from the people, is the U.S. government kind of painted themselves into a corner where they kind of, if they now say, okay, well, yeah, it is true, everything that's happened is true, will that now make America stand up and wonder what else they're lying to them? Do you think that'll do more of a disservice? And Steve, thanks for your call. We're going to put you on hold. We're going to give you a free copy of the new horror movie thriller, The Strangers, that's out on DVD, okay?
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Night. Thank you. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, that might be one reason why they're kind of reluctant to divulge it now, because they've been keeping it a secret, lying about it for so many years. People will really have distrust of the government if they come out and say, "Well, yeah, we've been lying to you all these long." Well, what else have you been lying about? Not that the government should disclose all secrets. Obviously there are certain things that cannot be divulged in national security and so forth. But that may be one reason that they're just kind of a little reluctant to make the announcement.
I know that a lot of the worry too has been about the religious aspect of it, is how people are going to respond to religion. Will that have a huge upheaval in religious terms? And again, with the Pope coming forward, that's kind of interesting that the Pope is kind of giving the nod that, hey, you can still be Christian and ask these questions and believe in it. And there's references throughout the Bible of UFO visitations if you read them that way.
Well, like I said, there's been a slow drip of information, and the Pope is, the UK just released a whole bunch of files on UFOs. The Pope is saying, yeah, it's okay. You can, even if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a religious person, you can still believe in extraterrestrial life. It's kind of interesting, that people ask me, what effect did that have on my own religious bearings? Well, I'm a Roman Catholic, and what that did, it strengthened my faith in a Creator, because, He created certainly a lot more than just us, but the whole universe, Well,
yeah, you'd like to think that if God went to all the hassle of making us, that He wouldn't just stop. I don't know an artist out there that does a really good creation and then just quits.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, someone once said that, if if we're the only ones, there's an awful lot of wasted space out there.
Yeah, exactly. There just seems to be too much. And I think the world has come to the place that we understand that ego-driven, we can't be the only thing out there. There's got to be more to the universe. Again, if you'd like to add more questions for tonight's show, you can give us a call. If you have any questions about the Roswell UFO crash, we're speaking with Jesse Marcel Jr., the son of Jesse Marcel, who is, one of the first military officials on the site of the Roswell crash. With the history of UFOs as popular as they've become over the years, and all the movies and the legacies that's kind of been passed on with all of the different Hollywoodized versions, all the way from Orson Welles' War of the Worlds to, Close Encounters to E.T. and Star Wars, everything that's gone on beyond. I think, again, you've just touched on it, people are kind of at a point where we already know it's there. We kind of believe it's there, and that there's something going on in the world. Do you think, Jesse, that you'll see it in your lifetime where there's an official statement made that this is it, that there is alien contact? Or do you believe, more importantly, in your lifetime, that we are going to have 100% proof of UFO contact? Are they going to finally just make themselves known to everybody instead of just a select few?
Well, I would hope that that there will be some sort of dramatic announcement about this during my lifetime, because I'd certainly love to say I told you so, but it may not happen. But if it doesn't, I already know what it was, so my curiosity doesn't have to be, it is already there. I know it happened, so I've accepted this since 1947.
How did that affect you as a child, Jesse? Did you get picked on? Did you have to deal with crap about UFOs and your father?
Well, like I said, my dad came home and said, we're not to ever talk about this again. So I didn't hear about it from anybody else. The story was killed in the newspapers the day after the big announcement was made. And so there's no real public discussion about it that I was aware of, because I was in grade school at that time and just enjoying life. It did make me very interested in astronomy and cosmology, because I realized that our planetary system is not the only inhabited one in the universe, or in our galaxy even. So that's what it did for me. It just made me very interested in astronomy.
How about Linda? Now, that's your wife, correct? Linda, who's the co-author of this book? How has the Roswell incident affected a woman who had nothing to do with the Roswell incident? Has this been a crazy thing for her life as well?
Well, she accepted. She says, well, I know, she's done enough reading about this that, my kids themselves were a little scared about this when they first realized that there's extraterrestrial craft out there. But they've come along to accept it too, just like she has. And it did not affect her religious affiliations either. So we both we've grown accustomed to the idea that that there are other people out there visiting us from other planetary systems.
We've got another caller. Online with us from Morristown. This is Kirk. And Kirk, you had a question for Mr. Marcel?
Yes, I was wondering. During World War II, the Japanese were way far advanced. They were using the jet stream to deliver bombs to the United States, and wondering, were they ever contacted, or were they ever questions about the materials used you were talking about, or has this ever been studied?
Yes. These Japanese balloon bombs, of course, were kind of, they did kill some people in the Pacific Northwest, but there's some thought that, well, maybe this is just a Japanese balloon bomb, but definitely it was not that. There's nothing like any balloon material with this thing, or anything that should be confused with a Japanese balloon bomb.
Well, I'm saying that the Japanese were studying the jet stream and had knowledge of the jet stream way before we did, and were they maybe was this one?
Do you think that maybe they had interaction with alien species as well, or UFO craft? Is that what you're wondering?
I'm saying, were they? It could have been a continuation of their testing or their studies.
I'm sorry. There's a little distortion on the line. I didn't quite get the question.
Well, it's just would they have continued their studies? Were they still sending vehicles up into the jet stream for experimentation or for information, or I don't know, what was this in the 50s? This happened.
47 is when the crash of Roswell occurred. Right.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you for calling in, Kirk. And yeah, I mean, do you think that there's do you think that there could be points of this that may have to do with more, foreign? What's the word I'm looking for here? Foreign contact. That, is it still a door open that maybe it wasn't a UFO? It just had something to do with foreign technology that they were able to slipstream in with this, or
it's the. I don't think so, because the material itself, the foil-like, that was material that had memory to it. The symbols on the I-beam. I don't think it came from any kind of earthly technology.
We're going to take our last break here with you, Jesse, so stick with us. We'll come back. We'll have one more little segment. We got a couple of calls on hold for you. And again, you're listening to Darkness Radio. Our guest this evening is the author of The Roswell Legacy, Jesse Marcel Jr. We'll be back with more of your questions. Good evening. Welcome back to Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. We're here with you every Saturday and Sunday night, 9 to midnight. We encourage you to join us. Also, join in on our live chat. You can go to darknessradio.com, click on the live chat link, and you can be a part of a community along with other like-minded individuals interested in seeking the truth about ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, paranormal phenomena, and the supernatural. We're here every weekend with you, and we hope that you will join us. Our guest this evening is Jesse Marcel Jr. He is the author of a brand new book called The Roswell Legacy. And Jesse, I'd like to go on record right now and mention we are doing a live event in Trout Lake, Washington, August 20th through the 23rd, 2009. And we're going to be out at the UFO Ranch in Trout Lake, Washington, at Gilliland's Isetti UFO Ranch. And I have been there 3 times now and have had witness to just crazy things I cannot explain away. And we would love to invite you to be there as a speaker and talk about your book and get a chance to meet with them and maybe give you a chance over 3 nights to skywatch with us and see if maybe we can bring you into some more, UFO contact, or perhaps have you on hand to explain to us what we are seeing.
Well, it sounds like it'd be fun. I'd like to see. That would certainly be something to look into, sure.
Great. Well, let's talk about that off air. I just want to at least make the mention because I know all the people in the chat room are going to be like, Dave, are you bringing him in? And for those of you that aren't familiar, we are doing a live event at the UFO Skywatch, Gilliland's Isetti Ranch, Trout Lake, Washington, August 20th through the 23rd. It's the same ranch that was featured on the A&E hit TV series Paranormal State. I was featured on that show as well, going out there and having had many experiences at the ranch. We're going to go back in 3 nights of skywatching. There's all the information, ticket information, and pricing on our site. Tickets are going fast. Go check it out. Again, darknessevents.com. Jesse, we have online with us, calling in from Minneapolis, we have Jeremy. Jeremy, are you there?
I am. How are we doing?
Good. Jeremy, you have a question for Mr. Marcel?
I do. I first want to say I think your show is great. I've been a long-time listener since you guys started here. So
Great. Well, thank you.
Well, a lot of the stuff is very interesting. I say a long time. I've listened to one of the AM shows late night that deals with much of the same topic issue stuff. So.
I'm not familiar with that show. I'm sorry. Go on. we're jesting. Go on.
My question for Jesse was this. I know that you guys have talked quite a bit in prior shows about the advancement of our technology relating to, UFO discoveries and that kind of thing. And I was just kind of wondering whether it was Roswell or some of the other earlier encounters, if that had any kind of direct correlation to the launch of our own space program.
I'm sorry.
Well,
there's some distortion of the line here. I didn't get the last few words there.
I'm sorry. What I was saying was, if as a result of Roswell or some of the other UFO sightings and stuff, if that had any kind of direct correlation to the launch of our own space program.
Well, it certainly could be. Werner von Braun was in Roswell and White Sands about the same time this happened. Now, German technology being what it was, I think they contributed mostly to the space program, but I suppose there could have been some correlation with that Roswell event. There was another UFO event in Aurora, Texas in 1897 that was very much like Roswell. But I don't think any technology was obtained from that.
What year was that?
Possible. Sorry?
What year did you say that took place?
I think it's 1897.
1897.
Yeah.
Right, and there was the UFO possible crash that took place there, and they actually buried the bodies that they found, correct? They had them buried.
They did. And they won't let anybody look for it either.
That's crazy. Jeremy, thanks for calling in and for being a part of the show. Why don't you hold on? We'll get you a copy of the new horror movie Strangers on DVD, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious with what we saw. Do you think, Jesse, that part of our space exploration, not just going to the moon, was it to go out there and see if we would be contacted by UFOs? Do you think that was any part of our space program to find strange new life and civilizations? Do you think that was going on in our research as well?
Well, I have some skepticism about that, but anything is possible. Like I say, I'm open to any kind of thought processes like that. But our space program sure got off to the start there in the 1940s and 50s.
Certainly did. What is the most compelling evidence you've seen, aside from your own personal experience with the Roswell crash? What is some of the most compelling evidence that's been shared with you to lead you to believe that there's a lot more going on as well?
Well, these things have been around for thousands of years. If you look at some of the cave art there's some obvious flying saucers that the cavemen drew. There's paintings made by the masters back during the 1600s that show flying saucers in the background. There's one of the Madonna and Child showing a very typical flying saucer in the background. So they've been around for a long time. But, the only evidence I've seen is what I saw there in Roswell in 1947, any direct evidence. Everything else is just what I've read and have seen, because I'm more of an observer than a researcher.
Right. But have you seen a lot of the video footage prior to the fact that, like right now it's got to be tough for anybody that's a real researcher because of the advent of the technology and high-definition cameras and the amazing abilities we have with computers that we can make amazing movies right on our home computer right now.
Oh, yeah, they can be faked quite easily that
way.
Right.
How about, you've been involved with this since 1947. Did you see any footage, through the 50s, 60s, or 70s before the advent of all this higher technology that really made you pause? Did you see video footage or information like that you thought was probably very plausible?
Well, I have a series of pictures that was taken before computer technology could fake these things, and boy, there's some images of flying saucers or something in the sky that just knocks your eyes out. Like in 1957, I believe, there's a boat off of Brazil or somewhere in South America loaded with scientists, and there was a flying object out there, and it was a flying saucer. They took pictures of it, and these are not fake. It was a real item. It circled around their craft and then took off. And this was witnessed by down-to-earth scientists, and they took pictures of it. So that was pretty intriguing. And yeah, there have been some very good photographs of flying objects that were not faked.
Are you familiar with all the footage and stuff that's going on in Mexico and Mexico City right now? I mean, there's been just an amazing amount of video footage coming out of that area. And do you ever go out and research for yourself? Do you ever go out to see if you can see the stuff when you hear about these major sightings?
Well, I have about $3,500 in a helicopter, and I have to say I've never seen anything that I could not identify except that light there, in a rock there, whatever that was. But yeah, I'm interested. I keep my eyes open. I look around because I know they're there. But I just am not that lucky. I just haven't seen anything.
Well, hopefully we're going to change that luck with you on our event in August at the East City Ranch.
Maybe they're staying away from it.
Yeah. Now we've got about a minute left here. What would you like to leave people with about your story, Jesse, that you really hope people will take away from your book and from your story?
Well, I'd like to leave people with the thought that Roswell really did happen in spite of the government cover-up, so this is a balloon, which is malarkey, of course. But I want people to realize that we are not alone in the universe. There are myriads of civilizations out there, some of whom are interested in us. They don't seem to be malevolent. They've been here. They've not directly contacted us because I think they probably would have more fear from us than we from them because we tend to shoot first and ask questions later. But I want people to understand that we're not alone in the universe, that there's others out there, certainly more advanced than we are because they can get here from wherever they're coming from. But I don't think they mean us any harm either.
No doubt. Well, Mr. Marcel, I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to have you on the show, sharing your story and your father's story with us this evening, and I thank you very much for giving us your time.
Well, Dave, it's my pleasure.
And again, people, if you're interested in the book, it's The Roswell Legacy, and you can pick it up at theroswelllegacy.com. And or you can visit jessemarcelsenior.com to get more information there. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to be back with Julie Shuster, who is the executive director of the International UFO Museum and Research Center at Roswell, New Mexico. And she's got an interesting story to share with us as well. Good evening, Mr. Marcel, and thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you. And all of you, stay tuned, because we are going to be back with more. You're listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. Good evening. Welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. We want to thank our very special guest from the first part of the show, Jesse Marcel Jr. I really appreciate the time and thoughts that he was able to share with us this evening. It was great to have him on here. Just an honor to have him be a part of the show. Makes you stop and pause and scratch your head a little bit there, doesn't it, Tim?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is, I just can't believe that things like this can go. I know the fight can be said, it's not going unnoticed, but that the government continue to try to cover something up that so many people had a hand in and were so involved in, which brings us to our next guest. And let me do a quick introduction here, though. First, Walter G. Haute is who we're going to speak a little bit about through his daughter, Julie Shuster. On July 8th, in 1947, the public information officer for the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release under orders from Base Commander Colonel William Blanchard that stated basically the military had in its possession a flying saucer. The PIO was First Lieutenant Walter G. Haute. His main job with the 509th Composite Bomb Wing was bombardier and navigator with flight status. During the atomic tests at the Bikini Islands, Haute dropped the instrumental packages for test. Now, when the story of Roswell Incident actually became public in the late 1970s, Haute was one of the first witnesses to be interviewed. And with people from media from all around the world curious about the story, Haute joined together with local businessman Glenn Dennis to form the International UFO Museum and Research Center at Roswell, New Mexico. Their goal was to house information on not only the Roswell Incident, but other UFO phenomena. He spent untold hours being interviewed for magazines, including Popular Science and Time. He did newscasts with Larry King and Good Morning America, along with newspaper and radio shows around the world. He was called on to present his story around the country for civic groups, school groups, and media. His comment regularly is that he could not count the number of interviews he did from 1980 to 2004. The way he made his statements concerning his involvement in the incident was, I issued the press release orders under the orders from Colonel Blanchard that stated basically we have in our possession a flying saucer and it's being flown to higher headquarters. He would add that his biggest regret was saying it is being flown, as the media around the world that were jamming the Roswell phone lines on July 8th, 1947. They wanted to know, how did Major Marcel know how to fly the craft? He'd have to explain later that it was actually put on transport planes. He regularly stated, too, that it was not of this earth and that they had tried burning, cutting, and tearing pieces of the debris but could not make a dent in it. And in 2002, Haute signed an affidavit stating that he had seen the craft and bodies under a tarp. He passed away, unfortunately, in December of 2005. Joining us this evening, we have Julie Shuster. She's the executive director of the International UFO Museum of Research Center at Roswell, New Mexico. She's a Roswell native. She's been involved with the UFO Museum since its inception in 1990, when her father, Walter, came up with the concept for the museum and worked to found the nonprofit organization. Shuster also returned to her hometown in spring of 2000. Her behind-the-scenes involvement with the museum turned to volunteer work, putting together necessary business manuals and other projects. Shortly after, there was an opening for the director position that she filled in the fall of 2000. She's represented the museum on numerous documentaries, radio shows, and in print media through the world. Included in that list, again, Larry King, Sci-Fi Channel, Travel Channel, CMT, National Geographic, Peter Jennings, MSNBC, BBC, Nine Network Australia, Talk Radio South Africa, and Global Japan. And with the popularity of UFO phenomena and the Roswell Incident, the museum continues to attract an average of 160 to 165,000 visitors each year. Looking to the future, the museum has purchased the entire city block, 7 blocks north of the current location, to build a state-of-the-art UFO museum facility. Shuster serves on the museum board of directors and is a member of the Roswell Chamber of Commerce board of directors. We'd like to welcome to the Darkness on the Edge of Town, Julie Shuster. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Shuster.
You're welcome. Gosh, I got wordy on those.
Yeah, you did, but it's good. It's good information. I want people to know who we're dealing with, who we're talking to you, and why we're talking to you. Now, so you've been with the museum as well, and you guys have 7 blocks worth of area? Is that what I'm reading here, or you purchased an entire city block?
We right now we are on about a half a block, and we have purchased, however, an entire city block north of us.
Okay. Now, if people want to make donations to help you see this dream come true, is there a site that they can do that at as well?
Yes, our site's real easy. It's www.roswellufomuseum.com.
Great. All right. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to help and donate and see this museum come to fruition in a bigger, more state-of-the-art facility, you can make a donation there. Now, let's talk a little bit about, now, this was your father, correct?
Yes. Walter Haute was my father.
And his involvement in this, now, did he have to stay pretty tight-lipped with the family for quite a few years? Was it until the 70s that he started to talk about it, or was he open with you guys about this from the beginning?
No, he wasn't open about it. A lot of people ask, well, you heard about this all your life. No, we didn't. Until the first book came out, neither my sister or I heard anything about it. The military said, at the time, if you want any governmental aid when you retire from your, any governmental assistance with anything like schooling, or if your kids want any schooling, your grandkids, you'll keep this quiet. And so, in the 40s, a lot of these people, and my parents included, had a young daughter at the time. My sister, she's older than I am, so I have to always throw that in.
Right.
But she, they took it seriously, and they were good military people, so they didn't discuss it. They may have discussed it among themselves when they were together, when they'd be out at the base and, at a party or something, somebody may bring it up, but it was not a topic of discussion.
Right. It was just something that was kept under wraps, like a good military person should, I guess, keep the secrets that they're asked to keep.
And one thing Jesse Marcel had told me when visiting with him at one point, he said, once Dad came home and said it was classified, that was the end of the discussion.
Right.
You didn't bring it up ever again.
Now, in the 1970s, this became popular. How did that start to affect your father then when this came out? How did he feel about coming forward and saying what he saw?
I don't think it really affected him much. He just, at that point, he said, what kind of, I'll tell my story and that's all I can do. And, for years he said, I issued the press release. I didn't, go into he didn't go into any other details except, it was not of this earth, and just some little comments to say he knew more than what he was actually going public with. But it did not, to my knowledge, it didn't bother him. Actually, when the first book came out, and I read it, I thought he was a little nuts. You know, and I don't hesitate to say that because I was very skeptical.
Well, sure. We all would be.
You know, my dad didn't say anything about this. I mean, because we were a very close family, and I just couldn't imagine that there would be something of that caliber that we hadn't heard of. Well, there apparently were lots of things we didn't hear about, and that was the big thing. And so it was just, you know, getting used to the subject and saying, okay, this is a possibility.
Now, did your father take any flack because, you know, of course, being the one to release the official press release, and then them coming out shortly after and saying, oh, no, it's a big weather balloon?
No, he didn't. I had a gentleman one time recently sitting in my office and saying that my father was basically run out of town by the military, that, you know, they transferred him and he was never seen in Roswell again. And unfortunately, that was not the case. My father and mother stayed here until they were gone. I mean, they bought a house, lived here. There was nothing negative to my knowledge that ever happened to him. We went out to the base. You know, we were regulars out there, and, you know, there were lots of parties and you know, lots of things that happened at the base, and we went. And so if he had been...
Even after he came forward, he was still involved in the parties and being allowed on base?
Oh, yeah. The base was closed in the mid-1960s, and I think it was 66. But up until that time, I mean, yeah, there was no problem. He was out there we were out there all the time. Went to the swimming pool and everything.
You know, Hollywood likes us to believe that as soon as you open your mouths and you're marked and there's crosshairs on your head the whole time. Did your father ever state that he had any fears that his life or the life of his children or wife were in any type of danger?
No. I did not hear anything along that line. You know, I think what you want to say, okay, the military was such a bad person or, you know, bad entity. No, they just said you keep it quiet. I read in a recent annual for the 509th Composite, and it said, what you see here, what you hear here, stays here. And that was their motto. You know, what you see, what you hear, stays here. And they lived up to that. If people had been taken to task for what they put out, you know, Colonel Blanchard ended up, I believe, a 3 or 4-star general. I'm not sure which one it is, but at the Pentagon. This was a man who was, you know, chastised for putting out allowing that press release out. Major Marcel was a colonel when he retired. My father when he got out of the military and went into the reserves, got out as a captain. So, you know, these are not people that were
right. They weren't just swept under a carpet or vanished. They actually excelled in their positions. They knew what they were doing, and they actually continued on. Right. We have to take our break here real quickly, so stick with us. Julie Shuster is our guest this evening, and for this segment of the show, we'll be back with more. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. And welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Sitting across the board from me, Mr. Tim Dennis. Our guest right now is Julie Shuster. Her father, Walter Haute, was the public information officer for Roswell Army Airfield and issued the first press release under the orders of Base Commander Colonel William Blanchard that stated basically the military had in its possession a flying saucer. When your father started opening up and did start to talk about this stuff, did he, you know, I know that he mentions he saw a saucer and bodies under the tarp. Did he actually see under the tarp, or did he just see the tarp and he was told that there were bodies and a UFO underneath it?
And this is going to sound very strange, I know, but because I when I say it, it sounds strange to me. When my father did the affidavit, it was not to be released until after his death. And so, you know, it was done a number of years before he passed away, and I honestly cannot tell you what's in it. I have read it numerous times, but I can never remember what's in it. And I know that sounds strange. Like I said, it sounds strange to me. So I honestly cannot tell you if he said that. It's in book Witness to Roswell, but I don't.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Sorry,
yeah.
I don't have an answer for that.
I'm with you on that. Now, let me ask too here, with the upswing, it seems, in the last few years of UFO activity. And your father passed away in 2004? 5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did he make any statements to you on the rest of the stuff? I mean, I know he was instrumental in getting this UFO museum up and running. You know, did his belief in the UFOs continue to grow once he came out of this, or did he just, was it just kind of a fun way to commemorate something that he was a part of, and did he roll his eyes at most of the other experiences people were sharing out there?
I don't think he rolled his eyes at anything. One of the things you learn here is that, we take everybody seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's some people you kind of go, I'm not sure about, but, we take people seriously, and he did the same. Whether his beliefs were strong or not, he questioned, as do a majority of our visitors, that are we alone? I mean, that chances are very slim that we're it. And so I think that was his feeling. My father did not, people will ask me, well, what did he tell you in secret? Just the two of you talking. Same thing he told everybody else. He didn't tell me anything new or different. But as, I said in the information about him, he would make the comment, it was not of this earth. He left it open-ended, which I always thought was very interesting for him, because he was a very precise individual. And so if he thought there was more to it and didn't want to make a blanket statement, he would do it that way, leave it open-ended a little bit.
But it just was not from this earth.
Not from this earth.
Now, at the museum, tell us a little bit about the museum itself. What all do you have there? And I know that it doesn't just cover the Roswell, but I mean, what all do you have that covers the Roswell Museum, and what other type of cases do you guys warehouse there?
What we have is a collection of mostly just information. People ask, do we have an actual piece of the craft, and if we don't, then it can't be real. We wish we had a piece of the craft. It would be great, but we are not lucky enough to have that. But what we do have is the people that were involved, and we try to showcase, here's what we know. Here are the statements from, Jesse Marcel's dad, the different people, Frankie Rose, some of the other people that were involved in the incident. Here's what we know. Here's what the government explanations are, and here is ongoing information, so make up your own mind. We work very hard not to try to convince anybody one way or the other.
You just present it and leave it out there.
And we do cover, we have pictures of the base in 47 era, so people can kind of see what it looked like. We have, again, witness statements. We've got a mock-up of the radio show where they said, news flash from Roswell, and talk about, having in the military having in their possession a flying saucer. And that's the kind of things we do have. And then we have, like, one of the government explanations was an anthropomorphic dummy, and we actually have one. So you can, people can look at it and say, does that look alien or not?
Right, exactly. Now, you had mentioned, I asked you offline when we were talking the other day about the town mortuary, the mortician, rather. And you said that he doesn't really do any interviews and talk like that. Are you familiar or privy? Is there any truth to the story that the government did, in fact, come in and purchase all of the children's-sized coffins from him? Do you know of any of that?
They did not actually purchase any coffins from him. They called and asked about the availability of coffins. And so they did not end up purchasing from him. My understanding at the time is that anything like that would have had to come out of either, I think, Lubbock, Texas. And, they said, okay, that's it. But as far as actually purchasing anything, no, I don't believe they did. But I could see where, in talking to Mr. Dennis, that, again, he's a real person. And, that when you're talking to him directly about what he knew and what he's heard, yes, I believe that he was contacted about, use or small caskets, embalming procedures for bodies exposed to the elements, and that kind of thing.
Interesting stuff. Now, people, again, can make donations to your museum, and that helps keep you alive because you're a nonprofit organization, correct?
We are a nonprofit, and everything that, people donate to us goes right back into the corporation.
Now, if people have had experiences, do you collect their stories as well to put, how do you do that? If people have photographs and UFO video evidence that they think they have, do you accept that for the museum as well?
Oh, we do. Well, we have as the name says, we have a research library. We don't technically do the research, but we do work with various researchers. And so if somebody had a sighting, they can go on our website and send the information in if they want to mail it, email it, anything. And then we take and the information, and our staff goes through it and then gets with a researcher and we'll pick if it's an abduction, if it's just a sighting, and send it to a researcher that can give them more information. So we act kind of like a clearinghouse in a lot of ways to let people send their information, and then we send it to the experts.
And again, you mentioned that the whole affidavit is reprinted in one of the books. Is that correct?
Right. Witness to Roswell.
Witness to Roswell, and that's still available out there and being published currently?
Yes, and by Don Schmidt and Tom Carey.
Okay, so that book is out there, and we'll put up a link for that on our site, folks, so that way if you're interested, you can purchase a copy of the book, see the whole affidavit as it was originally put together, and get the whole story for yourselves there. Julie, I appreciate your time spending here with us this evening and sharing a little bit about what your father went through and this. Let me ask you this with about a minute left in the show here. Did your father come under scrutiny from the town? Did people in town treat you or your family a little bit more different because of his involvement with this, or did you just feel it was life as normal?
Yes, there was some different treatment. When my father and Glenn were working to get the museum put together, there were a lot of people that said, and there's still people that say, we don't want to be known for that. Well, it's kind of like closing the door after the cow's gone. We already are known for it. And, there were some differences in the way he was treated, but my father, as I said, he stayed here, and people knew him and knew if he was making statements, there was a lot of truth to it. I have a neighbor who said that she asked her mother about it, and she said, if Walter Haute said it happened, it happened.
How about you? Have you ever seen a UFO now?
Actually, I have. One of my staff members and I saw one, which was it was interesting, and unfortunately we're really bad because we are ones that have not filled out the report yet.
Nice. Was it big? How big was this? Did you see it come out of the sky? Was it just way up high where you couldn't really get much definition on it? It
was like a big ball of light, bright yellow light, and it just, we were coming into north of Roswell, and this ball of light was there, and then it was gone, and about 3 weeks later, we saw it again.
Very interesting. So Roswell's still a hop and join, huh?
Well, it is.
Good deal. Well, hopefully people will stop out and they can check out your museum. And again, check it out online at RoswellUFOmuseum.com. You can also make donations there. Julie, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story with us this evening.
Well, I appreciate you all a lot.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. We're going to be back tomorrow with a brand new show. I hope you'll be here with us 9 to midnight. You're listening to your home for Paranormal Talk Radio.